Thank you very much. Welcome, everyone. Welcome back to those who were here last time, and welcome to anybody that's new. I present with my camera off because I use the PowerPoint slides as my speaking notes. And so logistically, it's just easier for me and maybe a bit more attractive for you so that you don't see me kind of leaning into this screen. I also, one of my practices is to read everything on screens and describe what's on screens because I feel that that's a way for us to be accessible, because we can't assume that everyone reads, sees easily. It's also a way for people who use a combination of listening and seeing to be able to take in information. We have a part of what our content is about plain speaking, which really is about kind of slowing down, enunciating each word. So I'm going to try and practice that, but it's really a challenge when you want to be mindful of time at the same time. So here we go. I'm going to turn off my camera. So welcome to Plain Language Session 2 for the Delta Local Immigrant Partnership. Today is May 14th, 2026, and the presentation is by Debbie Denault and Kathy Ball. Next, please, Kathy.
Yeah.
Okay. Kathy and I are in Chilliwack, British Columbia. So I would like to offer our land acknowledgement, and that is that we are honored to live, work, and play on the traditional, ancestral, and unceded territory of the Stalo Coast Salish people. Thank you. We will continue because this is what you asked for. Today, we are continuing to give you information about thinking, speaking, and writing in plain language, examples of simplified documents, tips for explaining complex information, tools and checklists for clear communications, and practice rewriting documents. Today's new topics we'll continue with what we did last session, but we're adding new. So in this session, you'll learn how to follow plain language structure and design principles, increase your plain language speaking skills, and test communications with audiences. Okay, Kathy.
So it's my turn. So good morning, everybody. Thank you very much for joining us, whether it's a rejoin or a first join. We're really glad you're here. For those of you who were here last session, this is just a reminder that today we will invite you to use emojis throughout the comments and or the chat room at the end. Please put your hand up or use the chat room for questions. And please be assured, this is a judgment-free zone. So please be comfortable and ask your questions and raise your hand. And I just discovered a technical challenge, Angela. I can't see everybody. So if a hand is up, and can you catch it and let me know, please, Angela? Thank you. Okay, so today our first section is all about clear writing, speaking, and thinking. And for those of you who maybe have done the homework, I just wanted to do a little review on the videos that we invited you to do. There was big chunks of homework, and no pressure because we are in no judgment, no, but just the 3 videos were plain writing and design, a demand to understand how plain language can make life simpler, plain speaking from accent to asset, integrating non-native English speakers, and plain thinking lost in translation, the joy of jargon-free. And I can't see the word because of the way it is. So Did anybody watch any of those videos? And did you have any comments about the videos? Because I have comments, so you get to listen. First of all, Angela, when you were doing the introduction about the goals that you have identified as your in your it wasn't called a capital plan, but the plan to move forward. I thought about Mike Wilder's video because it is all about helping those for whom English is another language feel more comfortable, feel more able to speak, and all the things that we as native English speakers can do to help them, to help their vocabulary increase. And he argues that acquiring vocabulary will actually help with comprehension. If you can't hear the words, you can't follow the conversation. So we need to speak to be understood, not to speak because we have something to say. So he had this very interesting thing where in your workspaces, what he was encouraging people to do was implement a policy to encourage people to know if they haven't understood or they are haven't heard or haven't understood or are getting lost. And in the video, he makes a C with his C shape with his hand, and he holds it in front of his chest. And he says that that is a very non-intrusive, very clear way of saying, please slow down. You've lost me already. And so if that would be helpful in your cultural, in your workspace, you can have it. And his the final comment that I caught from him was, consider the power of kindness in communication. And I thought, for those of us who are all in not-for-profits and working to make people better, make people's lives better, the power of kindness was a good thing to remember. I also really love the Deborah Bosley one. She was the one about demanding to understand how to make how plain language makes life easier. And amongst all of the things that she spoke about, one of the questions she posed was, do you know how many decisions we make every day based on information we don't understand? And in her case, the example she used was helping her parents navigate medical insurance. And she showed us a book that must have been 3 inches, sorry, that's 3 inches deep, and it was paperwork. And the people who were supposed to be helping you understand medical insurance put you in a room with this book and said, go at it. And she was arguing that it's impossible to make a decision if you don't understand what the pieces of the information you need to know are. And she also spoke about, and I hadn't thought about this, but I believe it to be true now. We read with our emotions, and then we use logic and data to make sense of it. So if you're giving your clients information that is that's confusing or makes them angry, they're not going to get past that for a while. So as you think about your plain language, whether it's speaking or writing, you don't want people angry with you, because that's not going to get anybody anywhere. And the piece of humor was, I'd like to ask, what do you think is the average attention span of the American adult? And just say it out loud, because I can't see anybody. Pick a number between 1 and 100. Let's go. What's the average?
3.
3? Okay. Actually, according to her, it's 8.25 seconds. So you have 8.25 seconds to get people interested in what you have to say. Then the second slide she showed us was a goldfish. Okay, I'm going to ask you the same question. The average attention span of a goldfish is 9. We have less time than we have less time to catch their attention than we would have if we were trying to catch the attention of a goldfish.
Wow.
So keep in mind what they need, what do they need to know versus what you want to tell them. And then she has 6 points, and I won't tell you all of them, but the one that struck me once again, I know this my brain is very wired for not-for-profit. Be helpful and be human. And she, yeah. And then the third one was hilarious because Thea Knight is Australian or New Zealand. I can't remember. Sorry. So you have to sort of listen through the accent. But she talks about jargon, and she argues that basically jargon is an empty language that just complicates the message. For example, and it was really interesting. She actually was using words that I didn't think of as jargon. So that was a very good learning experience for me. So as we think about jargon, think about it in the broadest sense of the term, because one of the words she used was ASAP. What does that mean? It means now. Another one, what's your pain point? And she said, that just means we have a big problem. So say we have a big problem. Get to the point. Because one of the things she argued is if you use too much jargon, you may actually end up disengaging your participants because they don't like how they're being talked to. So if you use a whole bunch of words they don't understand, then they're going to stop listening. You have 8.2 seconds to catch them. You better use words that you know how to use, right? So if you have an opportunity to look at any of those videos, they were really helpful for me, and I would strongly recommend them. But just know, if you have if your office is culturally full of jargon, watch the plain thinking one. If you just really need to figure out plain language, right? Listen to the plain writing and design one. Yeah, so that's kind of that was a review of the homework. I just pushed a bunch of information at you. It'll all settle. And then we're going to go to I'm the audience. I'm the homework attendant. One of the things that we have been encouraging you to do and will continue to encourage you to do is to develop your audience descriptions or personas. And so just a minute, let me get to the next slide. In general, who are your clients or program participants? Think about age range, education range, genders, demographics. What's their English language knowledge and confidence? And I would add to that, their knowledge in reading English is likely higher than their knowledge and confidence in speaking English. So you might want to keep that in mind as you work with them as well. What is their general knowledge, skills, or traits in life? What are their dislikes, their pressures, their frustrations, or their stressors? And why are they taking why are they attending your program? What do they want to know? What do you need to tell them? What do you need to help them with? So what else? Are there other things? And I'm just going to invite you to unmute yourself and speak aloud. What other things, what might you consider when you're thinking about the audience that you serve?
We deal with people who have experienced trauma, so that's something that we always consider.
Right. That would be a big need to consider. Yeah. And if you think about your clients, you might also discover that there are differences within your client group in any one or all of the characteristics that we've been talking about. So when you are, excuse me, when you are thinking about your clients and you realize there's differences, that will be an invitation to you to create a second document that has the same information. It might be that you want a visual document, a more visual document. It might be that you just need to write the same thing, only using different language, different words. It might, depending on the differences and the similarities. I often think of my audience as a Venn diagram, and what do they have in common? and then I start from there, and then I move up. Like, then you move out. Angela's got her hand up.
Yes, Kathy, we have a question in the chat
Thank
from
you.
Masood. May I ask, why do we consider trauma and what can we do while we communicate to them? Thanks. So I don't know, maybe Mary, if you want to touch on
Yeah. I can just answer one, just generally speaking, Mary, and then please take over. Generally speaking, the more pieces you consider, the more likely you are to come up with a document that will really speak to your participants, which is really what we want to be doing. So go ahead, Mary, please.
Thanks. Just a couple of things. Like we provide language classes and settlement classes. So, for our clients who've experienced trauma, it could be related to family. It affects their memory. It can, um, definitely affect their learning. So we have to be just aware of some things that may be triggered by just small and even small interactions. So our staff is all we provide training on that when where needed. Just a
Thank
little extra patience and understanding that what we read from the client may not actually in normal circumstances maybe would be their reaction could be different.
Right.
Thank you.
Just by way of, and I don't know if this is helpful, Masood, but just by way of an example that I had not so long ago, I was working with Literacy Matters Abbotsford, which is a literacy organization that serves Abbotsford, and we were doing an event on the Truth and Reconciliation Day and had a bunch of community groups connected to provide this event to raise awareness for the public about what Truth and Reconciliation was all about, where we were, how much farther we needed to go, all that kind of thing. And I was speaking to a First Nations person, and an officer, Abbotsford police officer, went by, and he was wearing a uniform. And the woman turned to me and she said, "I'm fine, but that might be a triggering visual for somebody who has had trauma." So sometimes it is stuff that we who have not experienced it don't even know how to think about it. So, and I think trauma is probably unique in a lot of ways, but there's a lot of pieces where I don't know what it's like to lose my home and move to a completely different country. So what do I have to learn about my group, my clients, in order to serve them well? And that's what the personas are all about. What does my client need from me to move their lives forward? Did that help, Masood?
I saw Masood gave a heart, so I think.
Oh, yay. Thank you. I like hearts. Okay, so we're going to encourage you to continue to work on your client audience persona. And even if you just jot down one or two words I have a piece of paper and I just write down stuff as I think about it. It sits on my desk and sometimes it gets covered with coffee stains and I have to start again. But it's just keep it in mind, because the more you think about it, the more you'll discover. And the more you discover, the more powerful your communications will be for your clients. Okay, Debbie, I'm going to hand it over to you, my dear. And I'm going to go to the next slide. Hang on. There we go.
Okay, so I will I'll address that slide in a moment. I wanted to add one piece to the conversation about audience descriptions or personas. We're using the word description for an informal kind of list of characteristics or a paragraph or two. A persona is a little bit more formal in that it's a one page document that's carefully designed and formatted. Either way, there's snapshot pictures to remind us of who our audience is. I would like to ask, please, if you could all commit to at least having a really clear picture in your mind of the people you serve, because one of our activities for our in-person session is to work together to look for some common characteristics, to kind of fine tune your personas. So it's really, ultimately, it's up to you whether you embrace this idea, use it. But we would really love it if you could be mentally prepared or bring something on paper for to contribute to our activities next time. If for whatever reason it doesn't fit or you can't, don't worry about it. We'll just you can just join in a small group and a conversation anyway. Okay, so again, no pressure. All right, so we are now moving to reviewing a communication. We are also asking you to rewrite or prepare to rewrite or think about rewriting a document during this set of sessions. So I actually don't need my camera off right now. Okay, I'm back. So what you see on the screen is the title, which says Reviewing a Communication to Rewrite. And then to the right of that is a photograph of a yellow piece of paper that's taped to an elevator wall. And it is a poster. And the information is about guide dog etiquette. So basically, how we are, as the general public, how we are asked to behave when we encounter a guide dog working with their handler. So this is my example of a piece that I pulled out that I have rewritten. And I looked at the homework that Kathy and I provided in the resource and exercises handout and went through and prepared, or sort of actually I went back to asking myself, what are the things that I did to review this and rewrite it? So I can tell you about that, but I would really love to hear about any work that any one of you might have done on a document that you are planning to rewrite, think about rewriting, or plan to rewrite during this session. So does anybody want to talk about any document that they have in mind for themselves? Okay, not a worry. For our in-person session, if you could bring anything at all that you think you might like to rewrite into plain language, and whatever whether you've just done nothing with it, would like help to get started, or have already done some revisions to it, just bring something along for the next session, because we want to practice and work with something that's real for you. So I'll just tell you a bit about what I identified with this one. So this is, the communication is called a guide dog etiquette poster. The purpose is to inform hotel and restaurant guests and staff about guide dogs, and to persuade people to respect who they are, what they do, and to give them the space to do their work with their handler. And their handler is the word that's used for the person that the dog is with. The audience's purpose for reading it would be to understand or learn something. But this is one of those pieces where the audience may or may not read it. It is posted in entrances, in elevators like this one was. And so the people are only going to read it if it catches their attention. And if it catches their attention, they're only going to read it if they're interested or curious or afraid of dogs or appalled that there's a dog in a restaurant. So this is one of those examples where design is really important and really helpful, or people won't see it and won't read it at all. The document will be successful if people, number one, see it, number two, read it, number three, follow the instructions, follow what it asks people to do. I will next week. I'll show you how it's been reworded and redesigned. But that's all I'll say for now. But so what I did there was I did exactly what was in your resource package from last week. For people who weren't here last time, we'll happily, well, perhaps Angela, can you send the resource package from the first session to anybody who wasn't here last time?
Yeah, I can
okay.
do.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, next slide, please, Kat. All right, so now we're moving to steps and structures that help us communicate complicated topics. So this is one of the topics that's come up a few times within the pre-course survey and when we were talking the last time. And so what we did here was we pulled together a few thoughts that we hope will help you with this topic. Okay, next, please. All right. You saw this slide last week. So the title of it is 5 general areas to consider, but I've also added a bracket to the right of that says steps. And because this is, if you follow these steps, it will really help you deal with complicated topics. So number 1, know your readers and the purpose for your communication. So that's what we've been reviewing this morning. 2, make an outline, which I had already written a note in here that said it was helpful for complicated topics. 3, write or edit your text. We're also learning how to do that now. 4, design your communication. It's on our list for today. And 5, test and revise your communication. So following those steps will help. Go ahead, Kath. Thank you.
Sorry.
No, it's okay. And then we collected some other tips as well, or strategies. So when you're presenting information, introduce the topic, divide the information into short sections, organize the content into a logical order, chunk the information, which means, when it's after your sections are divided, then collect points that are similar or the same topic, collect them together into chunks of information. And we, in terms of formatting and providing information in usable pieces, the recommendation is not more than 5 lines per paragraph. Guide your readers with titles, headings, and subheadings. Headings can either be descriptive or questions. So in our case, the title of this slide as a subheading is writing about complicated topics. So another way we could do this is a question. So it could be, how do we write about complicated topics? So sometimes questions are helpful. Sometimes a statement works. Either way, the more descriptive they are, the more helpful they are for helping people navigate through or find their way through a document in order to locate what they're looking for, find what they need. And then you can use bullets to break down large chunks of information like long sentences or complicated sentences. And you can use numbered list. Numbers are generally, there's some exceptions for this, but generally used to show order of importance. So if it's important for somebody to do this thing first, this thing second, then numbers work really well for that. Okay, Kat? One of this is a quote that somebody wrote, one of your group members wrote in the survey. This is more ideas for organizing information. So most of our challenges are when an individual has heard about our services from a friend or family member and wants the same service. So some ideas for managing something like this is to ask yourself about who qualifies for a program, what is the exact service you're writing about, who your target audience is, or who is the this part of this program is for. So you might have a suite of programs, or an overall big program, but there are smaller streams for specific people. So thinking about carefully sort of where people belong so that you can describe where they fit might be helpful. And then to also ask what specific rules must they meet in order to qualify for a program. And so in terms of kind of laying out the information, an idea to go with that is to consider columns or flow charts for organizing the information. And it could be that it could be for helping people understand where they belong. Sometimes organizations will need to provide different information for different groups. So for example, you might end up with 3 pamphlets, say, or 3 flyers, each directed to a different group of people. Next, please. All right. So this is a moment. We have reviewed some we reviewed audience, preparing to rewrite an organization, thinking about how to address complicated subjects. And Kathy also reviewed kind of big picture videos about plain language. So what questions or thoughts do you have right now? We have a couple of minutes to address them for you. And it can be, kind of anything related to anything we've talked about so far.
Or if you have a question lingering from session number 1, please feel free to ask it now as well.
Yeah, anything at all. Okay, so we have another opportunity for questions in a bit. So again, if anything comes to mind, let me know. And Angela, there's nothing in the chat box at this time?
No.
Is there? Okay. All right. So we are now at section 4, which is wording principles. So we did some work on wording the last time, and in the resource booklet are some resources. And so we're going to add a bit to that. Next, please, Kat. Okay. So we're looking at active verbs, and this is a really effective way of helping people understand information. And so the title is Active Verbs. So it says use verbs to create clear and effective sentences. Prefer the active voice over the passive voice. Active sentences are easier to understand because they get straight to the point. Benefits of these are clear order. They name the person or thing doing the action first. They name that first. It uses fewer words. They cut out extra filler words to save time. Next, please. It gives more energy to the words because active verbs use strong action. Active language uses strong action verbs that keep readers moving, and it takes less effort. Your brain doesn't have to work as hard to figure out who did what. So the construction of these is subject, verb, object. And in my home, one of my daughters and I have been, playing with this for a long time. So instead of saying the apple was eaten by Cheryl, we say Cheryl ate the apple. And then the example on the screen is the dad paid the fee instead of the fee was paid by the dad. So with that example, you can see how the dad paid the fee uses less words, and we can hear and see and understand the action more quickly than we do with the second sentence. The fee was paid by the dad. So Kathy has some exercises for us, and it is if you use passive or active verbs as often as possible, it's quite helpful. If you use a editor on your documents, like on your computer with Microsoft Word, it will pick up for you passive language. It'll say passive language, and it'll, depending on your software, it may give you suggestions to make it active. And there are times where passive is fine and quite useful. But as much as possible, the plain language specialists encourage active verbs. Okay, Kathy.
Okay. So we have six sentences in front of us. And the question is, are these statements active or passive? So I'm going to read each one, and you're going to tell me if you think it is passive or if you think it is active. And if it's passive, phase 2 is going to be change it for us, please. So please feel free to speak aloud or thumbs up, thumbs down, however you want to communicate. The first statement is, a refund was given to him by the college. If you think that's passive, could you put a thumbs up? And Angela, can you just watch it for me? If you think it's active, put a thumbs up. Clap your hands. Let's have a different emoji. So thumbs up if it's passive, applauding hands if it's active.
We're getting most thumbs up.
So that means you think it's passive. So, okay, so if you have a thumbs up, please, and just say it out loud. Speak for me in active voice, that sentence. Wow, that was weird. Rephrase it to be active. Anybody who wants to give it a shot.
The college, oh, sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead,
That's
Mary.
okay. Go ahead, Mary.
The college gave him a refund.
There you go. Any other shots? Anybody else
No,
want to
the
take a shot?
same. College
Yeah.
gave him a refund.
Okay, because what
Yes.
comes first? That would be the subject, and then it's followed by the verb, and then it's followed, oh yeah, object. Okay, second one. The student received a good score. Thumbs up for passive, applause for active.
We're getting applauses here.
Yay, you
Yes.
got this. Okay, number 3. The budget was approved by Jane. Thumbs up for passive, applause for active.
Okay, many are putting their thumbs up.
So that makes it passive. So somebody who hasn't said anything yet today, if you feel comfortable, please rephrase it.
Jane approved the budget.
Thank you. Jane approved the budget. Excellent. Okay, number 4, the agency proposed new activities. Mostly applause. Good. Okay. So just because I want to be kind of make sure this is connecting. Would anybody like to rephrase the agency proposed new activities into a passive voice? Do it the other way around.
New activities were proposed by the agency.
You guys are brilliant. Excellent. Okay. Number 5. New activities have been proposed, passive or active? And the winner is?
Any thumbs up?
Mhm.
So who wants to say that actively? Sorry. Yeah, who wants to say that in an active voice? New activities have been proposed becomes?
Somebody proposed new activities.
Yeah.
So
Mary,
this would be this is an example of one that could stay passive because we don't know who it was, and perhaps it's not important who, because we're missing that part, aren't we? Yeah, so that was tricky.
we like to be tricky. Okay. This time, I'm going to tie something I said today earlier. I'm going to read you the sentence, number 6. And then I'm going to give you 8.25 seconds because that's your attention span. And then we're going to see what happens. So same rules, thumbs up or applause, okay? The statement is, and as soon as I finish reading it, I'm going to start the clock. The statement is, the delicious meal was being prepared by the chef. Stop.
Big thumbs up.
Yay. And we want to rephrase that. And so it says,
The chef prepared the delicious meal.
there you go. Thank you. So it's fairly obvious when we're sitting here looking line by line by line, and there's a bunch of us and we're totally focused on passive and active. When you're writing your documents, it can be a little bit trickier. So just try to get that active passive voice in your as a filter in one of the many filters that is going to be in your brain by the end of this. Okay. Okay, Debbie, it's over to you, my dear.
All right. So now we are moving to design. And so the subtitle, the section slide says, Section 5, Design for Clarity. Plain design helps your readers locate the information they need. Font choice, white space, and layout are as vital as the words themselves. And I think that second sentence actually came from Lucas when we were doing some planning about this session. And I agree with him 100% that that is true. Next, please, Kathy. So, just moving notes here. Design for clarity. Use white space to break up text. And it's very common that when people talk about plain language, they say use white space. And if you're actually doing white on black, like on my Zoom screen, it's white on black, then it's called negative space. So we're basically, whether it's white or black or any other contrasted color, use lots of space in between those chunks of information or points because it helps people take in small amounts of information clearly, one at a time. Use fonts that people can read easily. Some will say that there's two basic kinds of fonts, a serif or non-serif, and that's about the little tails on the ends of letters. The jury's kind of out on which is easier to read. So use any of the default fonts in your computer programs. I love Arial as an example of a very simple font, very, very plain, very streamlined. And its sizing is actually a little bit bigger than some of the other fonts. So those fonts are completely different than a decorative fancy font that you might see on a formal invitation. Those are actually very difficult to read for many people. The third bullet is photos, charts, and other graphics to show information more clearly. And that's about organizing information so that we can see it in chunks, in groups, in sort of subject areas or topics. Use color for function and visual appeal. Visual appeal is important. Color to be accessible, color needs to have high contrast, and you can set your computer to high contrast colors. What happens? Well, I'll just use myself as an example. If there isn't high contrast, and we use a fancy decorative font that's very fine and very light. Let's just say it's silver because it's on a wedding invitation. So if we have that very beautiful, decorative, thin silver font on a beautiful pale pink paper, I'm not going to be able to see it. I'm not going to be able to read it. And so this is where I'll put in a pitch, and it's not that it's about me, but I don't mind using myself as an example of where we want to err on the side of generosity. We want to, all it takes is to use a plainer font and use contrasted colors. And then we are immediately able to include more people in whatever it is that we're doing. Locate text on the left side as often as possible. This is called to left justify. And this is because in English we read from left to right. And so we want to line up the text. And even if you're using columns, for example, still you can have like 3 columns on a page, but within each column, justify that left start on the left-hand side as often as you can. And then the next point is to highlight information, important information. And you can use bolds. You can use a larger font, like a larger size. You can use a different font. You can use color. And because all of those things help guide your reader through the document. So as far as plain language design goes, it's not, yes, it's important to have visually appealing material, but we design for clarity versus decoration. We add graphics, photos, icons that support the information versus decorating a document. Okay, next, please, Kat.
Not yet. Angela has her hand up.
Excellent.
I would like to ask a question. Since a lot of us here are service providers and we use email quite often to communicate, do you have a preferred font size when sending emails? For example, for me, I always have a default of Calibri as my font, and either size 11 or 12.
Mhm.
But would you recommend any specific size for the font?
I believe that with the Government of Canada new Accessibility Act that's coming through, that the standard that is being set there is 14. Now, I'll also say, like I know a seniors group that's struggling with this because some of the seniors would like the fonts to be bigger. And so so that would be my recommendation to them. On the other hand, because I am visually impaired, regardless of what you might do at your end, I still need to magnify my screen. So I take care of that ultimately by myself. And then people who use screen readers, doesn't much matter because they're listening to their information. And so again, I'll say, you know, err on the side of generosity. And if you would be fantastic to adopt a 14 font size for your email. And Calibri is, like I said, pretty standard. And I think it's regarded as a fairly easy to read font. The other thing is that we really encourage is on our emails, it would be an okay practice to, within the signature line, to say something like, you know, like on a team, if you're, you know, a manager or a colleague, let me know if you need any accommodations. Because then if you've got people on your team that need a larger font, then you all do that for each other. And it's part of, you know, inclusion and making information more accessible to people.
Thank you so much. Yes,
You're
that's
welcome.
very helpful.
Good. Thank you.
Okay, we'll move on.
Sorry.
Okay.
All right. So this is a very simple before and after. And this I pulled from my files from a long time ago when I was working with the English as a Second Language Settlement Assistance Program. And one of the volunteers had this lovely idea that she would host a Christmas party. So we made up this little flyer. The one on the left really has some design flaws. And so I corrected a few of them on the right-hand side. And really for this, I wanted to show you that sometimes to correct a design is really so easy. So I started with alignment. So there are 3 graphics on each poster. One is a Santa, one is a stocking, one is a Christmas tree. So they all represent Canadian or North American Christmas. For some reason, we put on the poster on the left, we put the stocking out of alignment. We just put it on the right-hand side, I guess, just for interest. So in my revised vision, all of the Santa, the stocking, and the Christmas tree are aligned as a column on the left-hand side. I also increase the size of the document name, which is, come to a Christmas party. Actually, it says, Merry Christmas, you are invited to a party. And this would be an example of where the spell checker wanted me to change the invitation to make it more active. And so then we've chunked the information. So at the top is, you're invited to a party. In the middle are the logistical details of, where it is, what time it is, what the date is. And then the third chunk of information is if you want to bring something along, you're welcome to. And so you can bring a snack or a game or your favorite Christmas, some favorite Christmas music. So that's a very, like I said, very fast and easy, simple example of how we can redesign some of our work to make it logical, easy to find our way through, easy to check back. So for example, if I think, oh, what is it that they asked me to bring? Then all of that information is chunked in one place. And that is the least important information. The most important is, this is an invitation. The second chunk of information that's most important are the logistical details. And then the third point is, if you want to bring something, this is what you can do. Okay, Kathy, thank you.
Not yet. Lucas has his hand up.
Perfect.
Yeah, I just want to add a comment here. Also, what you did on the second page is you got rid of all those semicolons and got rid of punctuation. I think that's also, I used it personally, get rid of all the dots and commas and semicolons. Sometimes you see in bulleted lists, you see the commas, right? So snack to share, comma, a short game, comma, favorite Christmas music, full stop. I think the point is not to be grammatically correct, but to be easy to be read. And get rid of all the dots and commas. And I think that, you can see that very well here.
There's we'll probably do a little bit about punctuation next session. But there are some sort of conventions. Sorry, I'm messing with my screen. There are some differences with plain language punctuation where it comes to lists, because it can be open punctuation or closed punctuation, and it depends. If it's one long sentence that's broken down with bullets, then you might want to use comma, 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 and a period at the end. When it's less formal, when it's points like this, where it doesn't have to be a full sentence, this is quite acceptable. So it depends on the formality of the document and what is sort of expected, I suppose, because there are documents where you wouldn't use the open punctuation. But for something like this, it's totally fine. So thank you for that comment. And Kathy's got, actually, we've got some fun punctuation exercises that Kathy quite likes that we're going to add in next time.
Debbie Mary has her hand up as well.
Okay.
Thank you. Yeah, just one consideration. If you work with folks who have literacy issues, which we have a lot of our students, especially like women from Afghanistan, for example, that never went to school. So learning how to read and write, they're learning to write the alphabet. And in the font on your title on this page, the plain design before and after, the lowercase g and the lowercase a, they wouldn't be able to read that because it's not how they learn to write lowercase a and lowercase g. So yeah, I know. One of our teachers pointed that out recently. Yeah. So she looks for font that is mirrors how we would write it,
what they would
or like print it. Yeah.
So this is that font is the default for PowerPoint.
Yes.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you very much. I love that.
No problem.
Yeah, excellent. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, sorry.
Okay,
Now, do you
so
have any questions?
I do have a question, Mary. I think that's such a great point that you brought up, and wow, that's something that I didn't even think about, even myself. When you say that, did they have a recommendation for a font to use? Like, I think Arial doesn't use A's, doesn't write their A's like that, but I know Calibri
doesn't.
does.
I think Calibri is the G is okay, but the A is not the A is the weird one in a lot
Yeah.
of font. It's the way it shows on this slide, for example. I can't recall. We had a conversation a few weeks about it, and one of the literacy teachers was telling me when she makes a worksheet, she always has to be careful to not use the font that uses this style of A because this she didn't even think about it until the students were so confused
What
and
is
they
that?
couldn't read it. Yeah.
Mhm.
They thought it was a
And
new letter.
yeah, it would be great for, you know, when you're establishing a plain language culture within your network for to look for those fonts and make them your defaults in your emails and to each other and in your documents. Yeah, that's fantastic. Good job. Okay. Okay, we are now on section 6, which is feedback, testing, and checklists. So here we are back to the guide dog poster. So feedback is in plain language, in your plain language work, feedback is essential. And we just had a perfect example of what feedback can do because this topic of fonts came up. And so when you have a culture where it's part of your work, part of your way of doing things to get feedback from each other, it just always improves things. When I came across this poster, I offered feedback to the group that created it. And the standard feedback tool that I use is a combination of strengths and recommendations or ideas to improve. So can we go to the next slide, please, Kath?
You sure can. There we go.
Thank you. So for that, the strength is that the information is really important because it's about safety actually and autonomy, because the guide dog handler and the guide dog work together so that the person can safely go where they need to and want to go. And so it was written by subject matter experts, which are guide dog handlers. So the information is important, practical, and easy to understand. So that's one of the strengths of that poster. The yellow paper it helps the poster to stand out. And as it happens, it was just they happen to have yellow paper and they printed it on yellow paper. But then when I looked for feedback from their target audience, which is the general public, a couple of people mentioned that because it's to do with safety, it makes sense that it be on yellow paper. And then for suggestions for improvement, the information, organized messages in order of importance. And so for that, we use the combination of what the guide dog handlers know is most important. And that combination with the target audience, the general public, what's most important for them to pay attention to as well. And then the next bullet is to remove repetitive messages because there were some repetitive messages in there. And then third, to apply plain language design principles to help people notice the sign. So that's an example, along with the really practical example about the fonts. That's an example of what feedback can do. Okay, the next slide, Kath, please. Usability testing is critical, and that is it's about what happens when a person uses the information that you're providing for them. And so I'll read the slide. Usability testing. The only way to learn if the people you want to reach understand your communication is to ask them. By testing your productions, you can find out what works well and what doesn't, and which aspects are understood and which are not. And this is an example of where I've used commas and a period, by the way. And this information came from Autrement dit, which is a communications group in Chilliwack, or in Canada, in Quebec, actually. So I wanted to give credit to the source. Next slide, please, Kath. There are 3 types of testing. One is paraphrase testing. So this is where you ask your participant to read a section and explain it in their own words. If they're explaining it in their own words and their words match the intention of your information, then you know it's working. If their interpretation of what it says is different from what you intended, then that will tell you and help you know what changes need to be made. The second one on the list is a controlled task. So give your participant a specific scenario and ask them to find a precise piece of information. So with the guide dog etiquette poster, it might be, what do you think is the most important thing to do when you encounter a guide dog and their handler working together? So then that would mean that the person would need to read the document and decide which they think is the most important thing to do. If they can do that without being frustrated, without them taking what they feel is too much time, then the document is a success. Think aloud protocols. Ask your participant to verbalize their thoughts, confusion, and reactions while reading. And so this is, in my opinion, quite interesting for people who are comfortable talking aloud while they read, because I did hear when somebody did that for a document that I was working on, they did talk about, oh, well, this doesn't make sense to me, or didn't you already write that somewhere else, et cetera, et cetera. So again, it gives you lots of information about your information. Okay, next, please, Kath. The third one on the list that's critical is checklists. We have provided a little bit of a short checklist in your first resource package, and we'll provide more in your second resource package. As much as we all know how to do our work, it's just really important to use a checklist. Kathy and I correct each other's work all the time, and inevitably we still end up finding an error somewhere. So it's just really important. It's difficult when we're pressed for time all the time, we being collectively generally, but it's very valuable. So the checklists that we'll provide you in the next package will include design checklists as well. Accessibility will include some accessibility checklists, but however, just in case you don't know this, with Microsoft Word, it is included in Microsoft Word is an accessibility checker. And so it will, if you run your document through an accessibility checker, it will help find ways for the document to be improved and more accessible to include more people. Okay, next, please, Kath. Okay, so we have been talking at the beginning about slowing down, which I did not do again. this particular slide is about how you can use your carefully written work to help you with your verbal. So I'll read what it says. Clear verbal communication uses key words from the written material. So that helps you be consistent with words that your audience understands. 3 to 5 main ideas in a message. Delivery instructions in a time order sequence. Pauses between pieces of information to allow listeners time to form questions or process the information. Repetition of the most important information at the beginning and at the end of each conversation, and gestures to illustrate main ideas. And so the reason that I pulled this information into our session is to highlight the fact that when our information is well organized, well designed, where the messages are clear and succinct, that makes really excellent speaking notes or a background or a backbone for us to use when we're conveying that information to people, or when we're pairing verbal messages with written messages. They can work really well together. Now, did I see a comment or question or something in the box pop up?
Yeah, I'm wondering if we can check the chat box. Hang on one sec. Let me do that real quick because there's several in there. Okay. So good morning, everyone. Thank you. Pleasure to meet you all again.
Thank you.
I'm from Opinion. Great to have you. May I ask why we're considering trauma and not subject for stepping away? Sorry, Mary, I'm giggling. The LOL as I get older. I appreciate the larger font. I worked in one of my jobs, I worked with senior citizens, and one lady just said to me, Kathy, if you email me anything that's less than 16, I'm just gonna delete it. I'm not even gonna try it. So there you go. All right.
Sorry, Kathy.
Yes.
Excuse me, but I missed I missed what you're talking about just there because I didn't read
Oh, sorry.
the box.
Mary was just giggling about as we get older, we all need larger font because our older eyes don't work quite so well as the younger ones.
Thank you. Okay.
Okay, hang on. I'm sharing, but I'm not going anywhere. Hang on. Oh, there we go. Sorry. Okay, that's the screen you were on. Debbie, are you done? Because it's of that clear community. Okay, so my turn now. And what we're focusing on now is a little bit of what we touched on before. And the glossary or alternative word list that you create, I can guarantee it's going to be an organic document that continues to be worked on, continues to be added to, continues to be edited, deleted, added, whatever. You're going to get it. So the words that are on the screen right now are the words that you gave us last week. The 2SLGBTQI services, colonialism, diaspora, gender identity, people of color, racialized folks, and sexual orientation. And I'm just wondering, we looked at colonialism and we looked at the diaspora. I'm just wondering how we, that would be you, are doing with your developing these alternative words. Next time we're together, we will continue to work on these words. But are there any, in the last couple of weeks, have you realized there are others you would like to add to your list? Because the other piece of glossaries and alternative words is an awareness of when you are using compound phrases, there are sometimes the alternative word list is about simplifying what you're trying to say. For example, like I said before, instead of saying ASAP, say now. Instead of saying pain point, say we have a problem. Instead of saying at that point in time, then. In order to. Debbie corrected me once because I'm a fan of and/or. And I don't see anything wrong with that, but she did. So we talked about it because you don't need both of those things. So get rid of them. Just pick the one you need and put it in. It's either an and or it's an or, it's not both.
Yeah, the slashes aren't helpful
No.
for people learning English or for people who have, for whatever reason, difficulty reading. Slashes aren't helpful. Ampersands aren't helpful either.
Well, and please don't hear this the wrong way, but I'm a slasher and I don't mean that the way it came
I
up.
know.
I use slashes all the time and I'm trying to break myself of the habit, but with limited success. So there, I just would encourage you, and this is part of the jargon conversation I started earlier today. I just encourage you to really pay attention to what you're saying and what you're writing, which is what plain language is all about. I get that. But if, like was mentioned earlier, people who can't even figure out what a G is, you're going to need to be pretty basic for them. And what I will do is assure you that simple does not mean stupid. It just means simple. So I don't know if there's questions about that or if you want to we can just keep moving on. Okay, and now here's the summary. So how do we use plain writing, design, and speaking to communicate complicated topics? We write, design, and speak as clearly as possible by following processes and steps, by structuring information, and by designing it to help people locate information. And that an acronym LUNA really helps me a lot. Locate, understand, and act. What do you want them, where do they find what you want them to know so they know what to do? I was also thinking when Debbie was breaking down the complicated topics piece, I was reading somewhere and I would love to tell you where it was, but I can't remember. But the fellow was arguing, don't forget the big picture as you're working on the little one. As you're chunking it up, don't lose sight of the bigger picture of what you're trying to do, because then everything really will be as cohesive and coherent and simple as it can be. What helps our plain language skills? We use our plainly written and designed information as resources for speaking. And how do we decide if a communication is plain? We build our plain vocabulary. We practice and ask for feedback. We test our communications with our intended audience. And Angela, when you were asking about, was there a font that was recommended? I was thinking, why don't you throw one out there that's 14 font and see what happens? Like just randomly pick one and see if anybody even notices, or ask them what they would like. I think people are quite often quite free to answer the questions when they're asked in an environment that's safe for them to answer. Okay, I'm going to stop sharing because I just want to see your faces actually. And go ahead.
Okay.
Go ahead,
No,
Deb.
It's just that we wanted to there's a couple more pieces on that slide. Like there's two more slides, Kath. Yeah.
Oh, is there? Sorry, let me go back. Sorry. See, we were talking earlier about my inability to be technically gifted, and there you go. Okay. So, oh, there you go. So, okay, so
this is the feedback that we're looking for today, please. And it is what was the most important or helpful information that you learned today. And then to help us really fine tune next week for you, the other thing that we would like to know, please, is what would you like more of next time? Like, is there, a topic that we've started that you'd like more specific information about? So Kathy would be happy to take any feedback about what you appreciated today and what you want next week. Either you can speak out loud or write in the text box.
Pop it in the chat boom. Yeah.
Yeah. And then the next slide after this, Kath, will be what we're doing next week. So
Okay. So why don't we move to that? So
you don't, okay, that's fine. Yeah. Go.
Do you know the problem is the little clock's going tick, 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 tick. So here's the thing. Please feel free to, yes, the feedback for us is really, really helpful. And I would encourage you to offer it either in the text box or chat room or aloud, or if your brain is full of other things and you just need time for the things to settle through, please feel free to, Angela, can they email you and then you can forward it to us? Would that be okay?
Yeah, I've actually just submitted sent the second survey,
Okay.
post
Okay.
survey,
Perfect.
capturing the questions you were asking as well.
Oh,
Thank you.
wonderful.
Perfect.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank
Okay.
you.
Okay, so next time I'm so excited because we get to meet face to face, so I don't have to talk in a little room. It's not padded, but it's a little room. So we're going to have lots of activity and practice, and we're going to celebrate. And here's what we'd like you to do. Please bring your audience descriptions, those personas, even if it's just 2 or 3 words on a page to get you started.
Or thoughts in your mind.
Or thoughts in your mind. Just let a little part of your brain be thinking about, what do I know about the people that I'm serving, and what are the characteristics that I need to be aware of as I do this document writing and this communicating. And then please bring a document that you'd like to rewrite, to rewrite in plain language so we can share those. And you can bring it on a device, you can bring it on paper, however it comes to us, we'll be fine with. If it's as small as a memo, like just a piece of document to get yourself thinking about to get yourself practicing what we've been talking about the last 2 sessions.
And we're going to practice giving and receiving feedback on documents as well.
Right.
So yeah.
And then we will put together resources and exercises to you through Angela. Thank you, Angela. And the homework, I would just like to go back to homework session 1. Those videos were very, very helpful. I think you'll find them very, very helpful. But please pick and choose. And then my email's there, and Debbie's email's there, and you already have Angela's email.
So Kathy's email is ballteam@shaw.ca, and my email is ddAssociates@telus.net.
And I have a quirky thing that's going on with ballteam@shaw.ca. Sometimes it feels like it's working, and sometimes it feels like it's not. So if you get a thing that says could not deliver because your thing was full, the email is full. It's not full. It's just, it likes to think it is. So if you don't mind sending it to Debbie until I figure out the problem, it just happened yesterday. So thank you for your patience. And I apologize for technology. And then I'm going to stop sharing. Are there any?
Yeah.
Are there any other comments or questions or queries or yeah,